Hello, friends and extended family. I come to you today with a completed book, The Birthbond by Judith S. Gediman and Linda P. Brown. I just finished it, and I had read it before many years ago, but it was a good read again and a good refresher. It really kind of highlights that dynamic of complexity in reunion because there are so many variables to take into account, so many feelings, so many conflicting emotions between the triad parties. And this book takes a nice cross section of birth mothers and their reunion stories, and for the most part, it gives a good spread, gives a good idea of what one could expect. Although I think it probably over represents reunions that go a little bit better, because there's certainly a lot of reunions that don't work out as well, don't have as long of a post-reunion and whatnot. One of the stories in there was a little bit disturbing, whereas one of the mothers cuts off contact with the adoptee because the adoptee is psychologically damaged. So she says that her psychiatrist agrees that her adopted child is has a serious personality disorder or whatnot. Well, that's probably true. But at the same token, why does the child have that serious psychological damage? Well, as an adoptee, and as a lot of you can relate, there is psychological damage that goes along with adoption, and the more psychologically damaged the individual, probably the more responsibility should lie on the birth mother for her actions that contributed to the psychological damage of her child. I mean, it's a tough scenario, but at the same token, I would think a little bit more empathy and effort would be put into getting that child psychological treatment, standing behind them, helping them feel that even though they're damaged, that the family wants to try and help them heal. It doesn't go into a huge amount of details, so we can't judge too far, but I mean, given our understandings, I think that's reasonable. But the book was written in 1989, or published in 1989. So, putting that in perspective, this information has been around for 30 plus years. Well, 30 years. And still, that's a generation later, even more so, we're still going through the same problems. We're still fighting for our rights to our information, etc., etc. Closed adoption is still very prevalent. So it's frustrating. And my warning goes out to adoptees who are just starting their research into adoption and trying to understand what it is, what they've actually just come through, what it means to their psyche, what reunion means, dealing with their feelings that are probably still hidden, feelings that are still private because they've been suppressed about their adoption, about their loss, about how they feel about all these things. So if an adoptee is reading this brand new, I wouldn't want them to jump to any conclusions, make any assumptions, and take it in slowly, and try to remember that there's even worse stories out there about reunion, and this book is a little bit more positive, but at the same time it really highlights the amount of problems that take place and come up as a result of a adopted child growing up and wanting to, rightfully so, research their origins, their history, their culture, their biological makeup, and to find the story of how they came to be and why adoption came to be in their life. So it has to be taken slowly and with a grain of salt. I was mistaking this book actually for a different one that I had read that actually was a catalyst in my first nervous breakdown at 28 years of age, when I took the first step in tracking down my birth family. It was a very traumatic incident. It does discuss this in the book about how some states require counseling before reunion, and to be honest, I'd recommend it because if you don't know what psychological dynamics are going into this, well, I think it's important to recognize that before reunion, you possess a fantasy of your biological family, which is quite common in children and in people to have fantasies that they were adopted, or fantasies that their parents are really a king and queen somewhere, or this sort of thing. But for the adoptee, this is true. Not that they have parents that were a king and queen, although that's quite possible. Their fantasy, like everyone else, is a reality. There is a reality behind the fantasy, and when you take those first steps to meet the birth family, well, you've now just stepped into a sort of limbo, whereas you're moving from fantasy to reality, and the fantasy that you've built up may be quite contradictory to the reality that you're going to encounter. So in saying that, this can lead to some very distressing emotions. And I think it is important to, at the very least, psychologically prepare yourself for a reality that may be jarring and may lead to denial and unacceptance and all sorts of things, depression, fear. It's a whirlwind. So unfortunately, I think we've taken the stand, whereas we hold back this information from the adoptee, hoping that they'll never search, or hoping that they'll just keep pretending that they're this person that was written down on a piece of paper, and never open up that can of worms. But inevitably, many adoptees do, and it should be expected. And that being said, the proper measures and proper information should be provided to that individual from a younger age, so that they can better prepare themselves, that their existence, their upbringing, adoption, none of these things are natural, and that the adoptee had better better know this, and better have all the information at their disposal that they can get their hands on, so they can best plan their life. You know, hoping that natural curiosity and the biological urge to reconnect with our origins should be assumed. It's a normalcy, and that should be part of the information given to the adoptive parents as well. In that, you know, you may think you're getting your child, but this child has another family, and you better make accommodations for that. So overall, I think the book is a wonderful read for non-adoptees, adoptive parents, adoptees, and birth relatives, to start giving a general idea of how many complex dynamics are actually taking place by this process. And not only that, I think it's good to really get to the heart of the birth bond itself, in that it's a lot, there's a lot more substance there than anyone gives credit when we normally think about or talk about adoption as such a positive thing. There's a big negative that goes with it, and that bond between mother and child is not so easily broken. And not only that, it causes distress on the mother and the child, possibly for the rest of their lives, and may manifest without them consciously knowing where their problems and griefs are coming from. So again, great book, many scenarios. You know, some I'm envious of, some I can relate with, and overall it just reinforces how important it is for us to educate people more on adoption, and wake people up to the fact that it's not easy. It's not some great blessing, and more often than not, it can be a curse, and it can take a lot of work to unwind the pain and start the healing process for everyone involved. All right, so that's what I had to say today. And I also was gifted a nice Amazon gift card, and I want to show you what I got with it. I got myself a crystal ball. I think I'm going to use it for meditation purposes, and you know, maybe I'll try my luck at fortune telling and whatnot. But anyways, that's all from the Angry Adoptee today. So thanks. Bye.